Yotta Bank just got exposed by CoffeeZilla. 85,000 Yotta customers have been left with frozen funds, and it seems like there's nowhere for them to go. Or is there? When Coffee exposes an apparent scam, lawyers like me all over the US, we perk up and we think, ooh, somebody's gonna sue with a class action and completely demolish this malfeasant, miscreant jerk of a company. I'm looking at you, CryptoZoo. That's what we always think. But wait a second. What if not every single scam sandwich is one that tastes good in the courtroom? Hey, hit the like button and let's break it down. Yotta Bank started out as a new fun way for people to save money through lottery drawings. Users got daily lottery tickets for every $25 in their account, and these lottery tickets could then be used for the platform's nightly drawing. These daily lottery drawings included cash prizes starting with a dime and going up to $10 million. Yotta was heavily promoted by financial YouTubers like Graham Stephan, Markiplier, and Nate O'Brien. But now it seems like their business model has changed. Take a look at what CoffeeZilla has to say about it.
Yotta now offers roulette, dice, blackjack that you can lose money on. Now, honestly, I was shocked by this. This is the same company that's saying play the no-lose lottery, regular lotteries are scams, they prey on innocent people. Now they're offering gambling. The savings-based business model wasn't working, so we decided to pivot. But pivot to what? To the exact thing your system was designed to fight, stupid lotteries that waste people's money, and you pivot to just getting people hooked on actual gambling? Is that it?
That seems pretty heated. But this pivot, while unethical potentially, isn't Yotta users' biggest problem. No, that would be the fact that they haven't been able to access their funds in over 3 weeks. That's right, their bank accounts are frozen. But in a weird twist, even weirder than Yotta's business pivot, is it might not be Yotta's fault? Let's break it down. CoffeeZilla explains in his video that Yotta is not a bank, but rather a financial technology firm partnered with Synapse, a banking software solutions company, and Evolve Bank, a technology-focused financial services organization. So user money is earned on Yotta and transferred to Evolve Bank through Synapse. And this Synapse-Evolve Bank connection is where things went wrong. Because they're in a tiff, and like in any elementary school playground fight, there's a lot of pointing fingers and some biting. Each entity is claiming that the other is incorrect about how much customer balances Synapse is holding at Evolve. After the exit of several partners, Synapse declared bankruptcy in early May.
I declare bankruptcy!
Synapse cut off Evolve's access to processing transactions and account information, which led to the Yotta account freezes. We have to keep in mind that this is a new version of financial services, which means it's not going to be treated the same way as traditional banking. Yotta's customers' money is technically on deposit with Evolve because Yotta is itself not a bank. And we need to drop a pin right there, and we'll come back to it in just a couple of minutes. A bank is perhaps the most heavily regulated entity under US laws. Now, there are two ways to get permission from the government to start a bank. One is to get a charter under federal law, and the other is to get chartered under the state banking framework where the bank is starting. And both the state and federal chartering frameworks have strengths and weaknesses from the standpoint of the founders of the banks, but the customer experience is going to be almost identical either way. We're all familiar with names like First National Bank or Mountain Federal Bank. Those are, as you might have guessed, chartered under the federal plan, and you can tell from the name. And then you have names like First State Bank or River State Bank or whatever. And of course, those are chartered under state law. It's right there in the name. But much like churches who have recently renamed themselves to exclude a reference to their governing denomination in the past 15 years or so, banks have tried to get away from the brand of how they are chartered. In either case, whether it's state or federal, they are very heavily regulated because they have something called other people's money. And it's easy for me to say that they're heavily regulated, but I want to actually explain it a little bit, just a tiny bit of what that means. They have three main regulatory agencies. They have the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, which is the primary regulator for national banks, responsible for chartering, regulating, and supervising all national banks. Next, they're under the Federal Reserve System. The national banks are members of the Federal Reserve, and they must comply with its regulations. And finally, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the FDIC, insures deposits at national banks and can impose regulations to ensure the soundness of these institutions, which of course they do. State charter banks are regulated by the Banking Department or Financial Institution Authority of the state in which they're chartered. They may also be members of the Federal Reserve System, in which case they're regulated by both state authorities and the Federal Reserve. And if they're not members of the FRS, then they are regulated under the FDIC, in addition to their state regulators. Typically, they have more flexibility in the types of activities that they can engage in, as state regulations vary more widely, and they may be subject to less stringent capital requirements, that's the amounts that they have to have on deposit, and operational restrictions compared to national banks. They often focus more on local or regional markets, and it costs less to be regulated at the state level. On the other hand, it's not as prestigious. But let's look at national chartered banks. These are regulated by the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. They are automatically members of the FRS, and they are also insured by the FDIC. They must comply with federal regulations, and they are subject to federal examinations. They're required to comply with the uniform national standards that are out there, and those are more stringent. It costs more to be regulated by the feds, but they can offer a broader array of financial services. On top of all of these things, banks are subject to a large number of customer-facing regulatory laws, and I want to touch on just a few of them. It is by no means all of them, but as you will see, they exist to limit the large amount of abuse that customers could, and of course have, suffered at the hands of bankers in the past. Again, this list, while exhausting, is non-exhaustive. The Truth in Lending Act requires clear and accurate disclosure of loan terms to consumers. Fair lending laws include the Equal Credit Opportunity Act and the Fair Housing Act, which both prohibit discriminatory lending practices. Then you have the Bank Secrecy Act and the Anti-Money Laundering Act. Both of these things require national banks to implement programs to detect and prevent many money laundering and other financial crimes. And then you have the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, I don't know who gets to name these things, which mandate national banks to protect the privacy and security of customer information. I'm just kidding, they're named after the senators who sponsored the bills. Then they also have to undergo regular examinations. These are conducted by the OCC to assess the bank's financial health, its risk management practices, and compliance with laws and regulations. You also have reporting requirements. National banks must file regular reports on their financial condition, risk exposure, and compliance with regulatory requirement to the OCC and to the Federal Reserve and to the FDIC. And why on earth am I covering all of this in so much detail? Well, first of all, it's not detail. I'm literally giving you just the quickest, simplest overview that I possibly can. But it's so that you can have a legal framework to understand that Yotta is not a bank. And this fact can't really be disputed. Now, it can be obfuscated. Just look at this Graham Stephan clip.
I just bought a bank.
Does Graham think Yotta is a bank? No. But it's not illegal to say that you bought a bank when you didn't. Heck, this is YouTube. You could say almost anything. But Yotta is a tech company. They aren't chartered and they don't have people's money. And now, as CoffeeZilla has highlighted, Yotta's customers don't have access to their own money either. The Yotta money is stuck not because Yotta is a Ponzi scheme or a gambling scheme or a shape-shifting virus that's mid-mutation and will cause trouble for all of those who interact with it. Although, it might be all of those things, or it might not be. I honestly don't think we can say at this point. But because it's not a bank, it can't be sued under any of the laws that we've discussed so far. So what can Yotta users do? Well, it's the American way to sue, right? Except that might not be an option in this scenario. I mean, they definitely can sue under a theory called unjust enrichment, which is an old school common law claim, meaning it's not from a statute, but from the common sense of a bunch of English judges from a few centuries ago. And under that theory, you basically allege that someone has something that's yours and you want it, wah, 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 wah. And the Yotta users would almost certainly win that case. But with a but. Whoa, a huge but. Lawsuits like this are notoriously slow, and there's a very real likelihood that the users/customers will get their money back even faster without taking legal action, whether they sue Yotta or Synapse or Evolve or all of these. I mean, I'd want to sue all three, but then I'd regret suing someone who's in bankruptcy because that introduces a bunch of new hurdles and new problems and is, in short, usually no bueno. But since it's the American way to sue, we also have to ask, are the YouTube influencers who push this product onto their audiences responsible for the negative experiences that those customers are now having? Ugh. As much as I hate the dishonesty and the hype and the shilling of products and services that are not reliable, I just don't see a lawsuit against Graham Stephan or anyone else having any legs.
Baby lost its legs and its arms, and now it's nothing but a stump.
Just because someone tells you that they're an expert or that they're reliable, that doesn't make them an expert, and it does not make them liable under the law. But hey, prove me wrong. Yotta customers, band together and file a class action against some YouTube influencers and change the law. Go make new law. I'd love to see it happen, but I think it will be uphill sledding. Do you disagree? Drop your pro se opinion in the comments, whether I'm right or wrong. And while you're down there, hit the subscribe button. Let's be friends. I want to be your favorite YouTube lawyer. Yes, over Attorney Tom. Yes, over Legal Eagle. I don't know. I dream big. Users got daily lottery picks. Whoops. The Truth in Lending Act, or TILA. Wow. You know what? No compliments. I'm dead.